Hello, welcome back to our very interesting conversations with V and M. I'm M.
And I'm V.
And what are we talking about today, V?
Well, so I've been looking at one of my main inspirations when it comes to human development, psychology, one of the masters in the field, and this is something that I do come back to sporadically because I've gained so much inspiration, and it's Carl Jung. Specifically, his talk about shadow work and the shadow self. These are concepts that I've delved into before now, but one that seems to have come back round again at the moment. So shadow work, basically, I think the way Carl Jung would say it is that everyone has a shadow self, and that shadow self, therein resides any issues you might have, any things that might have happened to you during your life that have been upsetting in some way, caused you to have certain issues going forward, and basically that resides in the shadow. And the idea of shadow work is that you go in and you have a look at it and you see if you can work through any of it so as to give you a better understanding of your own nature. Because I think his argument was very much that people do tend to go through life in a very unconscious way, and they react to situations in kind of a cyclic way that isn't altogether that healthy for them or the people around them. And it comes from the idea that we're very good at pointing out faults in other people but not in ourselves. So it's a kind of personal development exercise whereby you look at your shadow, you look at all your foibles, quirks, and see if you can become aware of them. And, so that's what I've been focusing on in the last day or two. Again, it's come back round.
But what if you're perfect like me?
Well, if you are, it is believed, or Carl Jung put it in a very broad way, that if someone is completely enlightened, then they don't have a shadow. But most people on the planet have a shadow self, have things that, need to be worked on in some way. So in this idea, enlightenment, or, what's a better word for that? That's the most common one, is the only way to get rid of the shadow. And you only get rid of the shadow and become enlightened if you work on the shadow.
So how do you work on the shadow then?
Well, there seems to be, from a lot of other kind of sources that I've come across, there seems to be all manner of things you can do to work on your shadow, really. One of the most commonsensical, I suppose, is to journal, is to write down or talk about this stuff in some sense. People who are of more of a kind of witchy or occult view might decide to do some kind of very, not even that simple sometimes, but a ritual of sorts, whereby they come to terms with various things going on in their psyche.
So when you talk about journal...
Yeah.
So I keep a journal.
Yeah. But you keep a journal about points of things that you've done every day, don't you? It's not, I'm talking about a kind of spiritual journal, an inward journal, talking about things that have come up for you that particular day that you might have found, a bit difficult to deal with, or so that you become familiar with these things. Writing things down seems to be something that comes up quite a lot in any kind of occult sense, and definitely very much so in the sense of psychology. And another thing that Carl Jung pointed out was that it wasn't just things that come up for you in the day. He believed very much that the dream world was a manifestation of things in shadow, and that you had to kind of bring those to the fore as well. So he placed a lot of emphasis on talking about this stuff. Obviously, he was a psychiatrist, or writing it down, or somehow bringing it out to the surface somehow.
So if something pissed me off.
Yeah,
I'd write it down.
What you do is you sort of give a scenario, or what I'd do, how I see it. I mean, don't take this for gospel because, I'm not an expert at these things by any means, but I do feel that it's a useful exercise. So you'd write down that a certain scenario pissed you off, but you'd also try and delve a bit deeper and say, why did it? What is it about that situation that made me feel a certain way?
Yeah.
How could I know that if something like that was to happen in the future, how could I deal with it differently?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That's basic shadow work anyway, that's the basic premise.
But and in terms of dreams, if I had a bad dream,
he definitely was an advocate for all kinds of dream analysis. Recording dreams especially is the most, common start point.
What if I want to have dreams that I like?
Yeah, well, that's fine. But do you determine your dreams all the time? Do you really have that much control over it?
I don't know, but you have to distinguish here, I think, between what the word shadow could have two meanings. One meaning might be that it's negative, and another meaning might be
that's not entirely true, because shadow doesn't just encompass all the negative. Sometimes there's things in there that are positive as well mixed in. It's more to do with emotional intelligence when it comes to psychology, I think, and knowing yourself.
So I was about to say, one meaning of shadow could be negative, and the other meaning could be sort of hidden.
Well, all of the above, yeah.
That's the way I've interpreted that word, and I wasn't quite sure when you first started talking which way you were going to go.
Shadow is basically, in the Jungian sense, is all the stuff that you're unconscious of most of the time, especially your reaction towards situations that you're faced with in life.
So if a positive situation happened to me, I would write down why it made me feel good.
Yeah, yeah.
As well as writing down why things that pissed me off.
So in a sense, you're probably right, it is just hidden rather than negative.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's shadow is hidden rather than negative.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they're faced with the term shadow work, kind of see looking at the dark side, if you know what I mean, as opposed to a light worker who would look towards the light all the time and try and bring light in.
That's the same thing, isn't it?
It is the same thing,
the problem is using metaphors.
That
makes it look sort of difficult sometimes to know exactly. So when we're talking about shadows, we're not talking about negative, we're talking about anything you're not aware of.
Yeah, really, I think so. That's my interpretation anyway, the subconscious, yeah.
And we're talking about, what was the other one?
Some of it's negative, some of it's very negative, I would say, but not all of it, no.
And so it's a sort of similar idea to the word occult, then, the fact it's hidden.
Yes, but coming from a psychology standpoint, but this shadow work seems to have been very much sort of, run away with by people, practitioners of kind of occult stuff, really. But it actually was Jung that first penned the concept, I think.
Well, he probably got it off occult anyway.
Well, they didn't call it shadow. So
no, they called it occult. I mean, it's just translate it differently if you want.
Yeah, it's coming from a psychologist's point of view.
To obscure, to hide, to include.
He was looking at it from a kind of conscious, subconscious mind point of view, which I actually think that's what a lot of that's what the occult is anyway, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That I've really always felt such a resonance with Jung. I cannot tell you. And I remember it every time I go back to him. Especially that stuff, though.
So, I guess you tend to concentrate on negative things, because negative things are sort of more annoying than positive things, aren't they? So, if you know how you're reacting negatively, maybe you can do something about it, and then you don't need to worry about your positive reactions, because they're positive.
No, well, that's the thing, you see, because some positive reactions can actually end up being negative too.
How?
Strangely.
How?
Like, it's not... If something horrible happens to someone that you don't like, and you get a positive reaction from that, there's a problem there, isn't there?
Well, you don't really get a positive reaction from that. You get a reaction of, ugh, and then you go, and then you go, and you're not quite sure how to feel about it.
No, but somewhere in you is a positive reaction to that.
Yeah, but who cares? What kind of reaction?
No, the thing is, that's what shadow work is. It's about looking into that.
If you had a reaction to your own reaction in the sense of, oh, I don't like the fact that I had a positive reaction to something bad happening to someone I didn't like, I don't like that aspect of myself, then it's that as a negative reaction that you need to look into rather than the reactions, isn't it? The initial reactions.
No.
There's something about yourself you didn't like rather than the reaction to something that happened, isn't it?
It's the same thing.
Well, not really, because there's a primary reaction of like not really knowing how to feel, going one way and the other, and then you look at yourself going one way and the other.
No, the primary reaction would be yes, something happened to them. That would be the primary reaction.
I don't know. It depends what happens.
The secondary reaction would be, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be feeling that.
No.
Let's look into that.
That's not me, because I sometimes bad things do happen to people I don't like, and my reaction tends to be like I imagine in there myself it happening to me, and then that's my first reaction.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think that's a lie, actually.